Joining us now from Singapore is Greg Smith, Managing Director at Global Commodities. Greg has been in the commodities industry for over 2 decades. Greg, great to see you as ever. Let's just talk a little bit about your concerns here and how realistic is it that we could have a chronic food shortage?
Yeah, g'day Rish, and thanks for having me, mate. I think it's something we've all got to be cognizant of, and I think the governments in the region will be a lot more concerned about it than me, in that not only are inventories declining, but the ability to replenish those inventories on a staple food such as rice is getting harder and harder by the day. Also worth considering going forward is the amount of water that's out there is probably going to lead to various types of fungal infection that could spread across to not only those fields that are currently inundated, but those that aren't. And so they're between a rock and a hard place. Indeed, the market was up, as you probably mentioned earlier, it was up over 3.5%, and that could be the start of it.
Now, you know, it's not just Thailand, though, we're talking about. We've got other parts of the world, and parts of Southeast Asia, which have also seen some damage done to their crops, chiefly rice here as well. I mean, the Philippines, for one thing, having a torrid time of it with the typhoon season.
Absolutely. And I experienced it at first-hand, Rish. I actually went to Cambodia to visit Siem Reap and the temples at Angkor Wat, and there was 3.5 foot of water out of the front of the hotel. And you really get an idea of how bad it is and how long this water is actually going to take to drain away. And the longer it takes, the more it's going to impact on the growing cycle. And unfortunately, if the estimates are anything like USDA estimates of recent times, the 12% is probably going to be grossly understated. So we've got to start thinking of how we are going to meet the increasing demand in the region and being able to keep these people fed and also ensure that there isn't civil unrest. Because when you think about the beginning of the year, one of the major fuels behind the Arid uprising was the cost of wheat and indeed the low inventories in large parts of that region.
Yeah, ironically, when I just want to talk about Southeast Asia, I had a guest on the other day saying that actually in the long run, all this water might actually help rice production. What do you make of that?
Yeah, well, I think it's gone beyond that. You know, they're talking anything up to 6 to 8 weeks for the water to drain away. And it may replenish the dams, which may be good for industry, but I'm not convinced with food. You know, at the end of the day, there's a window of opportunity in which they can plant, then they've got to harvest it, process it and get it into the market. And the longer these funds are there, Rish, the longer it's actually going to take to get it through the refining process and into storage. You know, we've got to start thinking about, if nothing else, there is going to be a lag of when people are actually going to see their inventories pick up. So,
okay, well, Greg, I want to just talk a little bit about, you know, it's not just, of course, rice that we're talking about. You've got concerns about corn and I think also sugar here as well, saying that their forecasts, well, you're forecasting them to rise significantly.
Yeah, well, I've always said to you in the interviews with you, Rish, that I like corn and sugar because we not only consume it as a food, but it's a fuel. And some of this sugar plantations are going to have to be impacted by this water. It's not just going to be rice, it's going to be sugar as well. And with regard to corn, we've got to see China, they've got to start coming in and buying to replenish their inventories to feed their pig market, which is the biggest on earth, and they've got inventory issues there with corn. So I think at these levels, two things I'd like to leave you with this morning. Firstly is that we do have low inventories. We're talking about longer time to replenish. And the second thing is the amount of cash that's actually come out of the markets, not just commodities, but across the board, when it goes back in, and it will escalate the prices more so than what we may have seen coming into 08, simply because it's unprecedented now with the amount of cash that's actually gone out of these assets and will have to start to come back in. So I think that we're getting real close to a defining point where... it'll happen.
Greg, great to see you as ever. Have a good day. Greg Smith there from Global Commodities.